All right, well, let me do a roll call for any members of the public and for the record of this meeting. John Cratsley, the chair of the Concord Community Preservation Act Committee. And I'll just do a roll call and each of you, well, let me just, yeah. So Tom, you want to introduce yourself and your role?
Tom Kearns, Vice Chair, Select Board appointee.
Okay, and Paul?
Paul Grasso, Recreation Commission.
And Nancy?
Nancy Nelson, Historical Commission rep.
And Hester?
Hester Schnipper, Concord Housing Authority Board.
And Diane?
Diane Proctor, Select Board.
And Peter?
Peter Ward, Select Board appointee.
Good, so we have a quorum. And
Did we get Burton? Did we get Burton?
Yeah, Burton Flint Planning Board.
Bert, I didn't see you. Did you just pop in?
No.
No.
Nope.
Oh, I'm sorry, Bert.
No worries, John.
Go ahead.
Burton Flint Planning Board.
Great, thank you. I missed you. My apologies. So for members of the public that are listening, I hope you will let us know by raising your question hand, which you can do with the little marker down in the participant section. In fact, if you all want to look at the participant section, you're probably all familiar with this. You'll see everyone that's here.
Yeah.
And then if someone from the public wants to ask a question or be heard, they have to raise the hand, use the raise the hand button.
Mhm.
And we will ask from time to time as we move through the agenda. And any of you that want to speak as members, I think you can just unmute. Heather, can they unmute themselves?
Yes, you should have the ability to unmute yourself.
And speak.
You can also kind of wave around if you have something to say.
Okay, good. So I think the first item on the agenda is simply, I think Heather can bring us up to date, or I think most of you have been watching the slow progress of when town meeting will be. But go ahead. Heather, what are you picking up from your point of view, from your
So currently town meeting is scheduled for, sorry, I'm just plugging on my email, June 29th. But that is because the moderator only has the capability of delaying town meeting in 30-day increments. I was told in an email last week, there's a very remote possibility that town meeting will be held on June 29th, but they are planning on a fall town meeting, likely in September, and will probably just continue to delay in 30-day increments until they get to the date in September or in the fall, whenever they schedule it. So that's the update on town meeting that I have right now. Hopefully we'll get a good enough notice. You know, if it is happening at the end of June, we'll get a notice, I would hope, this week that it's happening this month. But I don't believe it's going to be held this month. I think they're aiming for September.
Heather, if it is the end of June 29th, we would then have to schedule those meetings, potential meetings around the evenings of town meeting that you had already put in for the April dates.
Right, yeah, that's just in case something comes up the night before town meeting or the day of town meeting. We have a meeting scheduled for like the 30 minutes prior to town meeting beginning, just in case we need to meet to vote to change something.
Right.
So yeah, I would schedule that.
Right, and speaking of that, well, let me ask, are there questions about town meeting from any member?
Yes, John, this is Diane. My understanding is that so much of this depends on state money coming to the schools and when that will be finalized in terms of them being able to make more formal their budget. And therefore the likelihood of a late September town meeting is greater than a meeting before that. I don't know if anybody else has heard that same thing, but I've been listening to a lot of select board and FinCom meetings and have information about the school committee meetings. And that's been my sensibility. So
Well, that's very helpful because it would give us several different reasons for going to September, including the health issue plus the financial questions. On this question of whether there would be issues for us to discuss, whether it's June 29th or in September, I think you're all aware from an email that we sent that at the May 4th FinCom meeting, all of our proposed funding was approved by the FinCom, with the exception of the Giroux improvements, park improvements, and the Warner's Pond dredging. And Diane may know, if she's been at the FinCom meetings, I had asked to be notified when that would be taken up. Again, they just never got to it by 10 o'clock that night of May 4th. And it's because I think it's connected to capital budget expenditures that are related. We're in for, I think, 500,000 on each of those projects. I don't know. I believe there was then a FinCom meeting on May 14th, but I wrote the chair today to ask if those two remaining items from our warrant article were taken up on May 14th. I did not get a response. And I don't know if Diane was at the May 14th meeting, or if Linda was at the May 14th meeting, or anyone else can add light as to when the two the two recommendations were actually discussed by the FinCom. I just don't know the answer tonight, and I hoped I would.
well, it was not, to my knowledge, on the May 14th meeting, but I had a conflict that evening, and therefore I couldn't attend that one, John. But I do know that there were questions at the Natural Resource Commission about the Giroux, not the dredging. I think there's general misinformation out there about the dredging, but there were questions from the NRC about the what they're calling the barn, what the town is calling the barn building, because I don't think that when it was presented to us that was a central part of what we thought we were funding, and NRC was rather shocked actually by that financial commitment going forward right now. And I think I don't know that they really have the authority to stop that, but I know they were upset by it. That's then had some repercussions, and the select board is beginning to think about taking that up as a question. I know that among people in town, there's a feeling that honoring what the school committee has done, which is to say we're not going forward with the building plans right now. Let's hold all major building plans until we know what our general funding is and what our kind of tax resources will be, given COVID and just in general, giving employment and mortgage payments and everything else.
So that, without any knowledge of further FinCom action, it may be that still is on their agenda, and I need to get some clarification for what next FinCom meeting they'll discuss those two recommendations in our warrant article.
The next FinCom meeting is Thursday, and I'll look at the agenda right now for us. It just came through.
So is the issue that FinCom has questions, or are they opposed to these two projects?
We don't know because they haven't discussed it yet. They just never got to it.
Okay.
They approved all our other proposals. A good part of the night of May 4th was taken up on the historic preservation proposals for two religious organizations. The town council was there. I thought he did an outstanding job of presenting some of the legal issues and answering certain questions about the legal issues involved in answering questions about whether the likelihood of prevailing on a legal challenge. Ultimately, I think with his help and the other views of members of the FinCom, they voted to approve both of those recommendations that you folks made. So we're through the FinCom with a positive vote, other than these two unknowns.
John, on their posted agenda, as of late this afternoon, there is a status update on the middle school building committee, a town meeting update on the current schedule and FinCom readiness plans. And there are warrant articles, quote, continued discussion and recommendations. But otherwise, it's very, as my mother would say, could you be more vague? And they were very vague. I have no idea.
So we're talking about the night of June
4th.
June 4th. Okay, and it starts at 7?
It starts at 7, and there is no, there's nothing more specific than that.
Okay, I may get some more clarification from Dean Banfield, the chair. So that's the update on our warrant article and its review at the FinCom. If anyone else has a comment, question, anyone from the public would like to say something about it, we stand affirmed on everything but those two proposals for those two projects. And we have no other messages about changing anything we voted. It's possible this discussion might lead to some recommendations of change because they are linked to the capital budget items for those two big projects. So I think we just have to stay tuned and see whether we have any messages from either the FinCom or the Select Board about those two expenditures.
And I have another meeting on Thursday, so if anyone is able to attend that or gets a summary of what they discuss, if they discuss it, if you could just let myself or John know.
I'm attending that meeting, Heather, so I can let you and John know.
Well, I think I will try as well. I will try as well to tune in at 7 and listen.
Okay, thanks.
John, Tom here. I think that you did a very nice job on the May 4th, at the May 4th meeting, to try to clarify for FinCom the FY 1920 versus 2021 budget kind of buckets and how they were applied, but there seemed to be some natural confusion through this COVID period and with the budget concerns that are going on. So I think whatever we can do to continue to make clear allocations and what year they're coming from and what budgets are going to potentially be impacted, I think are important
Thank you.
to kind of reinforce with that group.
May I ask a question, John and Tom and Burton, who've had so much experience in all this? Can we review a decision we've made if we feel there's been massive fiscal reorganization? Or are we bound by the recommendations we've already made?
I think if it came down to it and the committee wanted to, you can amend your warrant article. That is possible to happen before town meeting. I'm not sure it would be appropriate to amend it to allocate more money to a certain project or to allocate money to a project you voted not to fund before, but to just not fund a project or to fund a project with less money. I think that would be okay. And then we would need some sort of handout at town meeting because we amended the warrant article.
And any reduction, Heather, based on conversation I had with you today, any reduction would simply carry over to the prior year in one of our big buckets.
Right.
Yeah. There's no way that the town would reallocate that to some other purpose. But I think the concern was when there was linkages between a CPC recommendation and the town's capital budget. that they would, be further encumbered potentially.
Right.
What is the protocol for approaching that particular dilemma?
Well, I think we wait and listen to FinCom recommendations and listen to the select board and see if they have a message for us.
Yeah, I agree with that. Then
Thank
get
you.
all of the viewpoints out on the table.
Yep.
So unless there's other comments from members of the committee or the public, the next item on the agenda is our fall schedule. And my sense of, I'll just describe the issue as I see it, and Heather may have a different point of view or a different way of thinking this through. The question that I thought might be important to discuss was, if town meeting is not held until the end of September, we have a September 18th filing deadline right now. Does it make, is it worth a conversation? Does it make any sense to think whether people would be impacted by the outcome of town meeting in crafting their applications? And therefore, would we want a later submission date than September 18th? Now, Heather, am I off base here? That just struck me as.
No, I think that's correct. And one thing I did inquire about is if the town started thinking about next year's town meeting and whether or not that's going to take place in the spring like normal, and whether the deadlines for submitting warrant articles will still be in December. And I was told that they've not even thought about changing it. So I think we have to proceed as if town meeting is next spring and warrant articles are due in December. And our schedule has to kind of fit into that like it normally does.
But I guess I would have a question about that. In terms of order of operations, we could have everything move through the various committees and the select board to town meeting, and our slate of recommendations may be altered in town meeting. And that could affect the thinking of an applicant.
Right.
They didn't make it. So I would say like we've got to just make sure that sequencing is clear.
Right.
I guess I'm stating the obvious.
Right. I think if we end up deciding to push back the application deadline, we can't have less meetings. The amount of meetings I have scheduled is like the minimum amount of meetings we need. Sometimes we have to schedule more depending on the amount of applications we get. So it might be we have a meeting 3 days a week for 3 weeks in a row in order to, squish our timeline down to have applications not due until October or something. So I think that's the discussion we have to have tonight, whether we're willing to do that or that's just going to be too much.
The question then for me becomes, if you move a deadline past the end of September, you really have to look at something like October 2nd or October 9th. I mean, it has to be pretty quick in October to meet all these other deadlines like the site visits and the personal interviews and the voting.
I mean, I would think we can do what we need to do, but we've got to be fair to our applicants, right? Okay. So they can.
And I don't know if all of you have calendars in front of you to even.
I can share it on the screen. All right, can everyone see this standard application process?
Yes, yes.
So right now we have 2 public informational meetings scheduled. One is supposed to be June 16th, and the other one is supposed to be August 31st. And then with an application deadline of Friday, September 18th. And then
Have you been getting inquiries that suggest that people are paying attention to this time frame and are aware?
I've not heard from any applicants about this next year's time frame. I'm not sure anyone's been thinking of it yet.
No, that's what I'm thinking, that people are not engaged yet on this topic.
Right. So right now, site visits are scheduled for September 26th. Then we have interviews September, October, meeting in November, public hearing in December, and then 2 meetings after the public hearing to be able to vote. And this is the same exact kind of number of meetings we've had the past couple of years.
So this feels rather like heresy, but do we ever take a year off? I mean, if this is just such an impossibly complicated, difficult year, what is the options?
Well, there'll be a huge pile of money made available from the 2 funding sources. And we could just kick it all over to another year.
And also, I think there may be a consideration that there may be some acute need in this time. So it also may be an important year.
That makes sense.
To be able, I don't know that for sure, but
it's going to be different, though. I mean, I think we're fooling ourselves if we think we can move along as we ordinarily do.
Given that 6 out of our 10 projects are town projects, I would expect the town will, especially with its other financial problems, they'll have a real interest in this protected money that's created in a unique way.
Yeah, Heather, is your sense that the reason there has not been a discussion about any change in next year's calendar, a reflection of just we've got to get through this year first?
Yeah.
We can look ahead, or no,
Yeah,
we're
I think
going ahead and we will do it.
Yeah, I think what I got was that they're just trying to get through tomorrow and figure out this year's town meeting before they begin thinking about next year's town meeting, which I kind of responded, well, I kind of need to know what next year's town meeting schedule is going to be like in order to set my schedule for applicants.
Heather, you run a pretty tight ship on the calendar side, and it strikes me upon reflection that we have had a little bit of a soft January. I'm not sure I'm exactly right about this, where we've gotten our work done. We had meetings scheduled. We were able to skip. Do we have a kind of contingency month in there where we could naturally do a shift and kind of move into that contingency month?
No, because warrant articles are usually due like January 2nd. They're due like right away. And so that's why I have us vote like the week before Christmas, because no one's around the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's to be able to have these meetings to vote, which is something we can discuss. Do we have a meeting December 23rd or, whatever date it falls on? And
does the town give a little bit more contingency room in terms of developing the warrant this coming year?
And that's what I tried asking, and no, they're not thinking about it, which, so to me, we just have to kind of operate on a normal deadline until we're told otherwise, unfortunately. And the thing about trying to squish our meetings together and meet a couple days a week, a couple weeks in a row to make our, push the deadline back is that people have planning board meetings, people have historical commission, people have natural resources and housing. And so it conflicts with everyone else's meetings those weeks.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what makes it hard. And that's why we only meet, once a week for a month straight to try to fit all those meetings in, is because we really can't meet other days without having conflicting meetings.
Yep.
Sounds like we're going to have to wait and see.
I think that's right.
Seems like if we were suggesting that a town meeting potentially may be happening the week of September 21st, the last full week, of September, that our business really, does it naturally then kind of begin after that?
Yeah, so I have to look at a schedule and see if there's a way to kind of push our deadline to like October, the beginning of October, and maybe applicants just have their applications drafted, ready to go, and all they need to plug in is the amount of money they're asking for at that point. Or maybe we allow wiggle room. You submit your application by the September deadline, but we need to know the exact amount of money you need by October something. That way we have the applications in front of us, we can start reviewing them. We don't have our total number for that total ask yet, but we'll get that in a couple weeks. That's something we can consider too.
Yeah, so
State guidance.
go ahead.
I'm sorry, Peter. Have you received any state guidance, Heather? Because other communities must be facing the same concerns.
I have not. I think they're dealing with a lot of concerns about, is there going to be CPA money, distributed next year? Are the registry fees going to be way lower because of this lockdown? Are people not, purchasing houses? So I think they're dealing with a lot of those questions. I can ask if they've received any information on how that's going to work. If we're going to get numbers late from them, I don't know, but I can send an email asking.
Is there any concern that that money that we're counting on won't be available, or is that pretty assured?
No, our money for this, the money that we voted in the warrant article has all been collected.
Thank you. Okay. And nobody's fooling around with it.
No.
No, so the money that we have allocated for this warrant article, that's fine. It's
Good.
what would be
Okay.
for next year for these applicants that would be applying.
No, that's okay. Thank you.
I would be reluctant. I would be reluctant to ask them to do applications except for their dollar amount before the town meeting in September, just because I think the town meeting the outcome of it will lead to more applications potentially, especially from the town itself.
Well, that's what I mean. They have to have their application submitted by September, and all they can submit late is the amount.
But what about people that aren't sure they even want to apply until they know the outcome of town meeting?
They
Well,
can apply and then
they
withdraw.
should apply. Yeah.
They can always just withdraw.
No, I meant they need the people that haven't written anything because they didn't think they didn't know till end of town meeting what they wanted to write about.
Mhm.
If you happen to be on the dredging application and you don't make it, right, you gotta plan for the worst, I guess.
You got to find the funding somewhere else.
Yeah, because I think if it doesn't pass at town meeting, it's kind of indicative of what's going to happen at next year's town meeting if you just apply for the same project. Possibly. So I don't know what you guys want to do.
Well, is it possible to lay out a draft calendar for consideration based on
Like a
a late
different-
September? Well, so we could see how the rhythm of those intense meetings, and if we actually could weave it together with everybody's commitments.
That's what I was thinking of trying to put together a draft calendar that showed what would be required if you had a early October deadline.
I can work on that this week. So an early October deadline.
Like the 9th, the 2nd or the 9th. I think Tom's right. The town meeting, if it's held, will be the week of the 21st of September.
Okay, so I can work on that and I'll email it out. I will try to look at like everyone else's commission's meeting schedules and try my best to schedule it around those. it may be that each committee member has to miss a meeting, or
Heather,
we'll figure it out.
would we need a quorum to do the interviews?
Yes, you need a quorum to do any meeting.
Or even just to listen to people?
For those, because yeah, I think for the informational, it's different. Those presentations, you're having active discussions with applicants and asking questions, and I think it's important to have a quorum.
So we might have, looks like Halloween is on a Saturday, right? So we might have informational, I mean, the week of the 5th of October, the week of the 12th or something like that. And then the 24th, that Saturday, site visit.
Yeah, and you can always have, meetings during the day. So we can schedule day meetings if that works for people. The public hearing has to be in the evening, but all your other meetings can take place during work hours. So that's a possibility as well. We did that, I think, 2 years ago. We had one of the applicant presentation meetings during the day.
The June 16th meeting strikes me as premature, in the sense that I would be surprised if anybody other than someone like the Emerson project or the second stage of the dredging project of the pond. I mean, I can think of some people who might think of themselves as already in a queue moving forward. But then again, they would depend on how the town meeting came out. So if we want them to go through all that effort, knowing that might be a futile gesture, I would think that one of the things we might be able to agree on is that June 16th meeting would not happen, and that we might have a late July meeting rather than a June meeting.
We have the August 31.
Right, that's the reason I was thinking a late July.
And if the deadline is not until one of the first Fridays of October, the 2nd or the 9th.
Right.
Well, I think it makes, certainly I agree with you about June 16th. So would it be July? Would it be, if we have one in August, would it make any sense to have one in September? I think it's up for discussion when to have a second meeting if we don't do June. I agree with you. June 16th will not, I don't think people will be interested or aware.
I think it's pretty hard. I agree about the June meeting, but I think it's pretty hard to make a decision about a later meeting at this point. All of us feel that it's impossible to know what the world's going to look like, tomorrow, let alone a month or two from now.
Indeed.
Well, one option would be to cancel the June 16th, keep the August 31st, get the draft schedule from Heather, and we would have to have either probably have to have another Zoom meeting or try to do it by, I don't know, Heather, can we meet by email or by?
No, we would have to schedule a Zoom meeting. I'm just thinking maybe we move the August 31st meeting to maybe beginning or mid-August, and that's our first informational session. And then this is if we move the deadline to October, and then have a second informational session in September. We could always do that.
That makes sense.
I like that.
Let me look at.
Yeah, it's nice to have the two meetings if we can, because if an applicant can't make one, at least it gives them another opportunity. Or if somebody, set up a late start in the process, it gives them a chance to at least have a chance to come before the committee with questions.
Right.
Yeah, and everybody's calendars are completely scrambled, but still August is a time when a lot of people are away. So if you have an August and a September, at least you might help.
That's optimistic to assume a lot of people are going to be away, but hope you're right.
Yeah.
Or maybe not away, but taking vacations.
So when I draft up a new revised potential schedule with an October deadline, I will propose a date for an a August informational session and then a September informational session.
That
So
would
I'll
be
send
very
out those
helpful.
dates.
I also think once you get this October proposal in, I suspect you're going to find that we have a little more wiggle room in December at the back end. We often were voting on, like, I think last year you voted on December 3rd. And you probably could vote the 10th or even.
Right now I have you voting December 15th.
Yeah, I see. So it could, oh yeah, let's see how it works.
So the wiggle room would be
Maybe
meeting the week of Christmas.
yeah, okay. Let's see what it looks like. Maybe we can get it all in before and still hold on to the 15th.
Right. It would be meeting the week of Christmas or the week of New Year's Eve, which New Year's Eve isn't till a Friday, so maybe people will be around that week. I don't know. So the other thing to consider is, I didn't explain this earlier. So right now, everyone is still a member of CPC. Your terms don't expire until town meeting takes place. So you all are stuck on CPC until September likely, when then we have to revisit if you're changing up who on your historical commission or planning board, if you're nominating someone else to be on this commission, that would take over after town meeting.
Do we know who's likely to be thinking about changing or not continuing?
I don't, so.
I know my term expired May 31st or something.
Yeah, your term expired and Hester's term expired. You, Nancy, filled a term, so I believe you could re-up.
Yeah.
And Hester, did you fill a term? No, but I think you guys can serve more than one term. I gotta check on it.
Yay.
I think I can, but the question is, yeah, I have to decide about that.
Don't go there, Nancy. Just say yes.
Yeah. Thank you, Diane.
So as we think about, meeting in December, some of you may not be on this commission at that point, but hopefully everyone still is.
Yeah. Okay.
Usually we're setting our schedule with our new committee.
Yeah, exactly. Okay.
I think I'd like to know if there's any member of the public or Linda Escobedo, our observer, that would want to comment about the scheduling of this challenge of trying to have a deadline after town meeting, but to keep the voting date in mid to late December so we can file a warrant on time.
Can you hear me? This is Linda Escobedo.
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, good. I wish I could help you. Everything is still in such a state of flux. So I think the approach you've taken right now in terms of the scheduling is as good as any.
Well, thank you. That's good. That's good. I think we'll try it. And that seems to me to then go to a question of when we could, once this gets circulated, when we could have another Zoom meeting. Today's June 2nd. And I think most of us are available most of June, I would suspect. I see my trip to my niece's wedding in Peru. It's all over this calendar, but it's all crossed out.
So I don't know if you guys, if so, we're allowed to have meetings for essential business or time sensitive matters right now. So having a discussion again about our application schedule and our meeting schedule, I believe is essential. So we can schedule another meeting. I don't know if you guys want that to be in June or if you want it to be July 14th, which would have been your next scheduled meeting for the informational session, since everyone probably already has that on their calendar, or if that's too late for.
Yeah,
maybe some follow-up from the Thursday FinCom, some ability to kind of communicate that to everybody. And I don't know if there'll be action required, but we may get something from that meeting.
I thought we could meet in 2 weeks from tonight on the 16th of June. We could push it to the 23rd.
Those are Wednesdays.
I haven't.
Those are Tuesdays.
I'm sorry, I'm looking at December. Sorry. What month am I in?
Yeah, so the informational session is scheduled right now, I think, on the 16th of June.
Maybe.
July 14th is the informational session.
Well, Heather, I was actually going to point out that it depends which document you read. In the application process, it was June 16th, and in our meeting on the website, in the list of our meetings, it was July 14th.
Oh, I don't know which one's correct then.
Well, July 14th is Bastille Day. So we could all have a bottle of French champagne.
Perfect. Perfect.
And wear the tricolors and celebrate while we meet. But that's probably not a good idea. But I thought it sounded fun.
It sounds great. Yeah.
It's a great idea.
So does June 16th work for everyone? Would you be able to attend?
I probably have to check my calendar.
I think it would be helpful to you, Heather, to have this resolved by that, as early as we can.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Works for me.
Burton, does that conflict with planning board at all?
I just have to look. I'm sorry.
Heather, I need to look at the planning board schedule, which I don't have in front of me.
Okay, I can probably pull it up.
I think that's okay in my life right now.
Let's go forward. It's fine with me.
Okay, it doesn't conflict with planning board. Okay, so I will schedule a meeting for June 16th.
Yeah, and that's what it says on the current calendar that's posted on the meeting notes, or the meeting documents. It says June 16th, informational session.
I don't know why I have something different on the website.
Yeah, I'm looking at it right now.
It's in the application number 1 at the top on the application, June 16th, and in the website of our meeting dates, it's July 14th. But let's go ahead on June 16th, and maybe some member of the public will jump in with a question.
Well, to get it rolling anyway.
Yeah. I think that is all we put on the agenda for tonight. And do we need a vote on any of this, Heather?
No vote.
Okay. Unless another committee member or a member of the public would like to raise another issue or ask a question. This was an update on where we stand with our warrant article, and it was an effort to get a more rational approach for next year's applications. So
there are draft project conditions, and are we going to be discussing those at some point?
Yeah, so we've already discussed draft project conditions, but I can put that on the agenda. I also have the grant agreements drafted, the MOUs drafted. So, I mean, we could probably get away with putting that on an agenda.
on the 16th?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have just one thing to say about the Masonic Lodge. So everybody knows that they did do sort of a mini architectural review of the roof. And I have an extra copy of that. And I think Heather also has a copy of that, pretty sure. Heather, I didn't know you guys knew each other. from before. Alec?
Yeah. Because
Yeah, I
I've
think,
TPC before.
yeah, that was pretty fun.
Yeah. No, I don't have a copy of that.
Oh, you don't? Oh, you know what? It's in the back seat of my car. How do I get it to you? Should I mail it?
If you want to, there's a Dropbox outside 141 Kais Road.
Oh, right. I'll put it in there.
Okay, thanks.
And it's unfortunately, they decided not to do an invasive investigation of the roof, which I think is the only way they can figure out what kind of a situation they're going to find when they try to redo it. So I can prepare a summary of what my discussion with Alec was. But just so everybody knows that they've done that and they're intending to come back some way.
That was my question. You do expect them to be in the applicant pool?
I would think so, yes. I actually wish they would do something a little beyond the roof and would maybe do something more in the line of the wood shingle instead of some fake slate, which is where they are now, but that's their decision, actually. But anyway, I do have a copy. If anybody wants to see it or wants me to send a copy, I can send it through Heather, I guess.
The other issue that Heather and I talked about was when we might want to have project updates going forward. I think it's a hard time right now to ask people to do that work, but
yeah,
we should have it on the agenda on the 16th, Heather.
To discuss,
You know,
when the new deadline would be.
Potential schedule and deadlines for project updates. We've got a lot of projects going on and we haven't looked at them as a committee for some time with good cause right now.
Okay.
Other questions or comments from any member? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
Motion to adjourn?
Is there a second?
Second?
Second.
Second.
And then I have to do a roll call. As chair, I vote yes. Tom?
Yes?
Paul?
Yes.
Burton?
Yes.
Nancy?
Yes.
Esther?
Yes.
Diane?
Yes.
Peter?
Yes.
And it's unanimous. The meeting is adjourned, and I don't think there was any other public comment. I asked several times for it. So
Okay.
thank you all very much. This is a
Good
first.
to see you.
Yeah, it's great to see all of your
Good to
faces.
see everybody, really.
I'm sorry, Linda, we don't see you, or Sandy, but we
Thanks
don't.
all of you for hanging in there.
Or Peter. I don't see him either.
I don't see Peter, but
Yeah.
He's lurking.
okay.
I don't know why. I don't know why.
Be
But
well,
anyway,
all of you, please.
take care, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Be well.
Bye-bye.
Heal up.